I want to talk to you about hibiscus, not the stunning Rose of Sharon that was produced by the Polynesians centuries ago. That is an absolutely wonderful group of flowering cultivars, and what an amazing culture those Polynesians had and still have to a certain extent. I'm not judging, I just thought it was better in the olden days. Anyway, we're talking about Hibiscus syriacus. It's a species from Asia. In fact, Syriacus itself means from Syria. And although you could argue that the colours of this particular form are not as bright, as vivid as those of the Polynesian form, they are indeed hardy. So at least you can grow these here in the UK, Northern Europe, North America. But even though they are considered hardy, there are some problems, and ones that you might not have even thought of. So this video is about the 5 mistakes that you would want to avoid when it comes to growing Hibiscus syriacus. The first mistake to avoid is to do with pruning. Now, quite often people like to prune immediately after flowering, and you wouldn't do it with this particular plant. Plus, there's another issue which we will get into. Firstly, the correct time to prune back your Hibiscus syriacus is the end of the winter, beginning of spring, before bud break. So that's when your leaves start to emerge. So before that happens, that is when you cut it. Secondly, if you cut outside that period, it's very sensitive. It can cause it to go into shock, and that means it will affect your flowering display the following year, because it doesn't want to send out all those nutritious reserves it's got to produce a load of flowers if it feels it's been at risk of being chopped apart. So only cut it when the plant is fully dormant. Now, this second issue, again, it comes back to the plant being sensitive. When you are cutting it, avoid big cuts. Now, I appreciate this is quite a large plant and may not be suitable at its full size in suburban gardens. So I can understand why you want to give it a good wallop. However, consider doing this. If it is too big, you do need to cut it, then cut it down in thirds. Take, say, the back third of the plant, cut that right down to about 18 inches. Leave the rest of it. Do that in subsequent years. So each year you would take off or take back a third of the entire plant, leaving you 2/3 which haven't been touched each year. That reduces the impact of these heavy cuts. If you need to just keep on doing that forever, then do so. But the last thing you want to do is give it a massive heavy cut straight down to half or ground level or whatever you wanted to do, because it will shock it and it will stop its flowering. It won't like it. So there you go. You only cut when the plant is dormant. Avoid cutting too much. That is good advice. The second mistake is to do with watering, and I appreciate that many people grow hibiscus not just in the ground but also in pots. They don't do so well in pots, but people do it. They like to restrict the root growth and maybe not have such a big plant. And there is some evidence to say that restricted roots can improve flowering, but that only works to a certain point before it starts the whole thing starts to go into decline. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about watering, waterlogged conditions. Now, if you're in the UK, we are prone to periods of drought, which is absolutely fine because Hibiscus syriacus is very drought tolerant once it's established, not immediately. Don't forget to water it when you've newly planted it in the ground. But what it doesn't like is waterlogged conditions. Now, this can affect the plant in two ways. It can cause stunted growth, yellowing of leaves, and reduce the flowering display. Secondly, if it's waterlogged for long periods of time, it can increase the incidence of soil-borne fungal infections. So it's not uncommon to see plants that are well watered starting to wilt, and you think, it must be dry, give it more water. Well, that would be the wrong thing to do. So be very careful when you're planting it. Plant it in conditions that are free draining, reliably moist. And like I say, once established, it's fairly drought tolerant. It is not bad at all. So there you go. That is number 2. Again, good advice. This next mistake is to do with light levels. Now, the reason why you're growing Hibiscus syriacus is because you want a fantastic flowering display, which they will give you. However, you need to give this plant as much light as you possibly can. So if you're in the UK, you're looking at a south-facing position, full sun all day, every day. In fact, the RHS recommends an absolute minimum of 6 hours of direct sunshine, our kid, every single day. Thank you, Liam. No, I think they might be interchangeable, those two. Anyway, avoid making the mistake of planting your hibiscus plant in a dark, shady part of the garden in order to brighten it up. It's not going to work the following year because it's not had enough light. It's going to look stunted, poor flowering. It won't be very good. The key thing to remember is to try and plant your specific plants in a part of the garden that fits the needs of that plant. So whatever the plant has evolved to grow in, provide that. So with this plant, plenty of sunlight, sheltered, free draining soil. It's quite easy when you know how. Oh, hold on a minute. If you're finding this video useful or even just mildly amusing, then don't forget to click the thumbs up, press on that subscription, and if you want to be notified of whenever we release a new video, then click on that notification bell. It helps us more than you know, and it allows us to do stupid visits like this in the future. Anyway, let's continue to find out what old boiled butt has to say. My bloody glasses back on. Too hot, too sunny. It's too lovely. Now, I want to talk to you about fertilizers, and we don't usually talk about fertilizers in our 5 mistakes to avoid, unless it's to do with ericaceous plants. Now, they are quite heavy feeders, these hibiscus, and you'll often see when they break foliage bud in the spring that the foliage can be discolored. It could either be quite yellow or it could be green, but with white patches in it. It doesn't look quite right, and it's because it doesn't have enough nitrogen within the plant in order to produce enough chlorophyll to give you some lovely green leaves. And you can really feed these up, get some absolutely stunning, rich, dark foliage, which if you're growing the white flower forms, it's really quite striking. Very, very good. I do like that. So you have to make sure that come early spring, you start giving it some feed, and regular feed in order to get that plant the nitrogen it requires in order to produce the chlorophyll pigment to make the leaves go green. That's all fine, but there is another issue, and it's fairly rare. The only time I've spoken about this is when it comes to growing proteas that do not like any phosphorus in their soil. Now, when it comes to Hibiscus syriacus, if you apply a high phosphorus food such as a homarite, it can inhibit the uptake of other nutrients, and this means that you can get stunted growth, you can get discolored foliage, you can get poor flowering. And you wouldn't think that ordinarily, but this is a specific issue with Hibiscus syriacus. So avoid the temptation to use high phosphorus foods to encourage flowering, because you will do the opposite. So there you go. Feed it plenty of nitrogen in the spring. Avoid using high potash fertilizers. You didn't know that, did you? So this last mistake, mistake number 5, we're going to break down into 2 smaller mistakes. Now, the first one I want to talk to you about is mulching to give protection of the roots, and also secondly is the risk of frost damage on the new foliage as it bud breaks from late frost, which we do get here in the UK, maybe not so much in other temperate zones across the world. So first one, mulching. Now, when you purchase your plant, you may have noticed, assuming the garden centre hasn't top dressed your pot, that the top surface of the soil you will see a lot of the matted roots of your hibiscus plant. So this is its habit. It does have these fibrous roots, tertiary roots, quite near the surface of the soil. Now this means that they are exposed to ground penetrating frost, and as you know, as we spoke earlier, this can be quite a sensitive plant if it's being damaged. So over the winter periods, if you're in a place that is prone to freezing temperatures, put down a nice thick nutritious mulch. Now usually I'd be saying put down a dry mulch, give you that protection because of the air pockets in it, give great insulation. But I'm going to say a nutritious mulch for these hibiscus. So put a few inches down, avoid the mulch touching the bark or the stem at the base of the trunk, because that can thin out the bark and increase the risk of infection or fungal infection. So make sure that there's a gap between your trunk and the mulch. But this doesn't only protect it from cold freezing conditions that can damage these roots, it also gives it additional nutrition. So throughout the winter period, with rain, nutrients drawn into the soil, and as you spoke earlier about, these plants require tons of nutrition. Of course, don't overfeed because that gives its own problems, but there you go. So that is a great advice. Put down a nutritious mulch over the winter period. Now, regarding late frost, you're probably familiar with Hibiscus macrophylla. They are prone to those early bud breaks and then getting hit right back and damaged by the frost. So your plants are using a lot of energy and resources to produce that foliage, only to have it taken away from them, which again will shock the plant, delays everything, gives you a weaker plant. The same is for your Hibiscus syriacus. They break their bud really early, so take that into consideration when you're planting these. Put them somewhere in the garden, making sure they've still got their full sun, free draining soil, but give them some shelter from those late frosts as best as you can. So there you go. Those are my 5 mistakes to avoid when it comes to growing Hibiscus syriacus. And if you've got any other great tips when it comes to growing these, we'd love to hear from you. Put that in the comments section. A lot of people read through these. I read through these. I will respond to them while I can at the moment, while we're not too big. But it's great to get a little community going on in the comments section. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video. I will be doing a video on the Hibiscus Rose of Sharon. I love that plant, but I often see it absolutely ruined wherever we go around the med or wherever it is. But it is heartbreaking when you see such a stunning plant sat there like a complete lemon. Not lemon tree, you know what I mean. It's a saying that we say in the Cockney land of London. I don't live there anymore. Right, now, just before you go, if you want to see more content, more behind the scenes stuff, and images that I've taken of some weird freaky plants over the years, then you're in luck, because we've created an Instagram page. So you can find the link in our description. You can find the link on our main page, and if I'm clever enough, I might be able to get a link somewhere up there. Anyway, thank you for watching, and if you want to see more YouTube stuff, then check out this video here. That's quite a good one. And if it doesn't float your boat, then another one right there. And enjoy these while I still got the strength, imagination and aptitude to make them. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.